Good evening, everyone, and welcome to PyLadies Dublin this evening. And I'm Vicky. I am one of the organisers for PyLadies Dublin. I have my co-organiser Lay as well. Who you'll see in a sec after my announcements. So right now, just go through a few announcements first before I introduce the speakers. So I'd like to say thank you to our community partners, especially to Doublemaker for the use of the Zoom meetings for all our meetups for the past year, and of course, one of our past speakers from Magilabs, they've the discount code for any of their products at their store. They said that's going to be there indefinitely, so that's great. And also, that is gone. I should really delete that. That is gone. You can see so yeah, that's our community partners. Thank you again. So we have a couple of talks this evening. We actually don't have a third speaker. Probably we'll have her in the future. But this evening we have the orders. This order is going to be swapped around. So we have Mihai, who is going to be talking later about collaborative documentation as code with Git, Mkdocs and Pandoc. And our first speaker will be Elif to talk about shipping Python apps. So yes, that's our agenda for this evening. It's quite short. Hopefully I'll get this done momentarily. Welcome announcements, speakers, so Elif, and then followed by Mihai. And we have about, since we don't have a third speaker, we have some time. So it'll give maybe Elif or Mihai a bit of extra time to demo and for their demo and their talks. And also some time for people if they have any questions for our speakers. So do ask questions in the live chat. Feel free to also introduce yourselves. But if you have any questions during the talk, put them in live chat. Myself, Michael, who's also there helping me, and Lay will share the questions with the speakers afterwards. I just kept this here from last month. So EuroPython is happening next month, and the tickets are available. There is financial aid available if you want a discounted or free ticket. And if you still want to volunteer, there's still time to join. The more the merrier. So I'm involved with Doublemaker, and their Maker Festival is happening this Saturday. It's going to be virtually held in Gathertown. So its registration is on Eventbrite. So check out the website for more information. And I'm always looking for speakers. So from September onwards, if you like to give a lightning talk or a demo or even a workshop or any other kind of fun things to show to the community here, just fill out the type form or just contact me as well. So the upcoming events, our next PyLadies is in July 20th. Bojan will be talking about Fast API, Lambdas, PyTests, and other cool things. And it's on Meetup, so you can RSVP. The information will be there. And other Python-related events besides EuroPython, which is happening next month. We have the Python Ireland. I think there's a AGM. I don't know if that's the one. I didn't check, but I know they have a monthly meetup on Wednesday, July 14th, and I noticed in passing that AGM is happening as well. So check meetup. It might have happened or not. I can't remember. But definitely the next meetup is Wednesday, July 14th. So if there's any other kind of events, let me know. I'm not going to list them all here. As I said, I have a link here to a list of curated events that I do for on this site here. So it's a list of diversity and tech events around Ireland. So if there's anything that you want to add to the list, just let me know. And this crypt pad that I'm using here, this collaborative pad, you can actually access it through Meetup. This evening's Meetup page, so you'll see the announcements. If I don't have it there, I'll add it this evening, and I'll also add it in the post-event message as well, so you get to find all the announcements as well as all the events that are happening. So, without further ado, I will switch over before I introduce the next speaker. We'll switch over to say hello to everyone. This is everyone here. We have Elif, our speaker, and Leah Michael. And then hello. And so, as I said, Michael and Leigh will help answer any questions, and also help me pass on any questions you have for Elif and Mihai this evening. So, I will put on an intermission sign so we get Elif all set up for her talk. So be right back. Hello? Can you hear me now? Um, okay, it's actually a logistics issue on my end. My apologies to everyone. Hold on. Um, okay, can people hear me now?
I can.
Okay. I think I just set the
Yes.
wrong setting. My apologies, everyone. It's logistics on my end, production problem. It's no one else's. So sorry about that again.
No worries.
So we did a test run. I promise we did this yesterday, and I did a test run on live stream over the weekend last week as well. So apologies to everyone again. I suppose would you mind just starting just on this slide? I think people are okay. You don't have to start right at the beginning, or if you want to. I don't want to. Yeah, sorry about that. I just interrupted your flow.
No worries. Just shout when I'm able to start again, please.
Go ahead. Far away.
Okay, great. Just got a confirmation in the live chat. Hello, everyone, once again. Thank you, Vicky and Lay and PyLadies Dublin for having us this evening. And without further introductions, I want to go on with the topic. As I was saying, well, I'm sorry you missed it. Today we're going to discuss about shipping Python apps with, let's say, Podman. What's that? What I am with this presentation is that I would really love it to show developers how to set up a fully development environment using containers. The reason for this, for my choice, is that there could be times when you need to wait for maybe a test server or a test environment, or you depend on other teams. Other teams might be busy. This having your own environment enables you to test in a very timely manner any features, any bug fixes, and I strongly believe this eases the releases and deployments and enhances the software development process. Going on. Oh, well, and a bit about myself. I think you missed it. I'll just say very few words. I'm a DevOps engineer, very keen on automation, addicted to coffee, and love a wine of glass in the evenings. Other than that, well, I'll look for questions if any experience would be relevant. And I do hope that my passion for automation would also bring something useful to the community. Okay, guys, containers. What are actually these? I'm sure you all know that containers have gained quite some popularity in the recent years. Well, I'm not sure everyone knows that the technology behind containers has actually been around for quite some years. If I'm not mistaken, around 2001, Linux introduced a project named vSphere. Uh, and this is one of the first attempts into containers world. Uh, well, from a Linux perspective, I would say that a container is just a process, but a process which actually has some restrictions. However, instead of running a single binary, a container runs an image. But what is an image in the end? Well, imagine an image is actually a file system bundled, having all the dependencies required to execute a process. And by dependencies, I understand installed packages, processes, files in the file system. So that would be actually what an image is. Uh, when a container runs, it actually uses an immutable view of an image. This means that multiple containers are able to use the same image simultaneously. Moreover, these images, imagine that I can write an image just by writing a text file. Well, indeed, there are some restrictions and some syntax to be respected, but it's actually a file, and a file can be stored in a versioning system. And also, this allows a development team to use the same image. Moreover, whenever a fix is done to that image, or maybe an enhancement or an improvement or something new is added, everyone can refer to that image in the source control version. Well, but where are these stored? There are two options. You either store them locally, but more often than that, images are stored in a repository. Imagine like a GitHub. Like in GitHub, you have a code, you have your code where all the files are stored in. Similarly, images used by containers, either Docker or Podman, are stored in image repositories. For that would be some examples would be Docker Hub, and I think most of you are familiar with this one. Other than that would be something newer such as Quay. Of course, this image repository can be either public or private. But how does Podman actually fit in this ecosystem? What does it bring us in addition to other container engines, such as Docker, maybe, which we all know that for some years? Well, Podman is actually an open source tool which is responsible for managing containers and container images and interacting with image registries. Some key feature Podman has is that it uses images which are compliant with the OCI standard, OpenShift, apologies, Open Container Initiative. These specifications are actually a standard. It is community driven and most importantly, non-proprietary. Moreover than that, Podman stores local images in the local file systems. Doing so, it avoids unnecessary client-server architecture by having daemons. This is one of the, let's say, key differences between Podman and Docker, for example. You no longer need a daemon. Moreover than that, it is quite easy to use Podman because all the commands issued use the same patterns as Docker CLI. Everyone is familiar with Docker run, Docker pull, Docker exec. Well, imagine that using Podman means the same. Podman run, Podman exec. I remember reading an article when someone just said that uh, when he or she started using Podman, he actually created an alias for this and continued simply writing Docker, but it actually used Podman for that. Another advantage is that Podman is compatible with Kubernetes, and Kubernetes can use Podman to manage its containers. That would be a quick overview about that. Well, but what happens when I don't have only one service? Usually, when we have an application, we also have a database, maybe some tool responsible for managing various jobs. There is also the application. How do all these integrate? Well, in a microservices oriented architecture, we'd have the application in a container, the database in another container, but how do we link these? How does the application container know how to refer to the database one? Uh, well, it's kind of, let's say, rather difficult to do this using only, let's say, containers in their purest meaning. For that, we could use Podman Compose, which is actually an implementation of Docker Compose, but it has a Podman backend. One of the benefits is that we are able to use the Docker Compose files we actually have in place because, let's be honest, the community has been using Docker for quite some years. And the need to rewrite all our Docker files or Docker Compose files would be kind of troublesome, but there is no need for that. And as I was saying before, there is also no daemon needed for that. We only depend on having Podman installed, and this is really easy. Other than that, we need Python 3 and PyYML. However, there will be also some cases when I would not recommend using Podman Compose. Uh, for such cases, for example, for single machine development, maybe consider taking a look at code-ready containers, or for maybe for multi-clusters, for multi-node clusters, maybe Kubernetes or OpenShift Container Platform, or maybe OKD, the upstream for OpenShift, would be much much suitable solutions in such certain cases. Well, that would be, let's say, a quick introduction about Podman. Let's deep dive into the, let's say, into the fun part. Okay, what I did for the demo side, I have created, let's say, a dummy Django application, which will display some text. And for that, I also have a database. Well, my project is called PyLadies, and I have the following. Okay, what happened here? Okay, I have the following here. So I have a Docker file. Let's take a quick look into that. What this Docker file does is the following. The end result, it actually builds the image for the application. I'm starting from a Python 3 image, setting some environment variables, defining the working directory of the image, copying the requirements txt, and by that I mean the dependency the necessary dependencies for the application. In my case, I have mainly Django would be a requirement, and let's take a quick look at that. Well, I have Django, Gunicorn, and the last one is necessary for PostgreSQL. Back to the Docker file. Installing the requirements, copying the source code, and actually this. And this would be the command necessary to start the application. Let's build the image using Podman. For that would be simply Podman. Well, let's ask for some help. Quite easily minus help. Okay, so I hope everyone is able to see that there is quite Podman associated commands are quite similar with the Docker one. So in my case, in order to build an image, I would need to use Podman build. Well, I could also specify a tag, let's say PyLadies. And actually Podman starts building it, and it does its magic. Bear with me for a few seconds, please. Great. So, well, I have a lot of images, but the newest one is the image I need. Well, what about the database? I don't like that. For that, in order to ease our job, I have also written a Docker Compose file, which simply has two services the web, which is the actual application, depending on being dependent on the database, which is a Postgre latest image pulled from either Docker Hub or other registries available. Uh, the application exposes the port 8000, and for persistency purposes, I have mounted a volume for the Postgre. Well, let me break you some good news. You actually don't need to build the image I have as I did previously. No, no. Let me delete it and show you an even easier approach. Okay. So the image I previously built is no longer there. No tricks hidden here. And let's issue the Podman compose up command. Let's see what happens. Oh, the first step Podman compose up does, it builds itself the application. After building itself the image, after building the image, it will start the web service. It will pull the Postgre image and link the web application to the database one. And I need to show you how this is done after this is finishing. What is interesting is that, let's see, is it there? Does it exist? Oh, and we actually have an application up and running. Just issuing a single command. Let's see what Podman did behind. Well, this is weird. Okay. Oh, actually, I didn't notice the fact that I have a permission denied. This is why the database container did not start. Okay, indeed, this is an issue. I suspect that is a cell Linux context issue. Yes, indeed. Hmm. This is peculiar. So I think I need to change the container. Well, the issue, guys, is that I have now observed, curiously, that the ownership of varlib Postgre data is, well, I'm not able to run that. Maybe. Okay, troubleshooting would take a bit of time. I suppose that would need to match the ID of the Postgre user from the container to the one on the local host, and that would be the issue. But let me show you the last thing I wanted to do for tonight, and I'll owe you well, a running database container. For that, I wanted to show you how the link between the database container and the web container are done. And for that would be in settings, I have defined the following environment variables. And there are two hidden files which are referenced within the compose file. For example, this is for the web application. Don't worry, the secret shouldn't be, well, will not be committed. It's not recommended to be committed in the GitHub repository for the production application, but this is just a dummy one. And please forgive me for I have sinned. And the second one would be for the PostgreDB. Mihai, would you be able to take over until I quickly troubleshoot the database container, please?
Oh,
Postgres
sure,
is giving me some
sure.
troubles.
Sure thing. If I can hopefully share my screen now, I'm gonna kick this in. Let's see. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Okay, guys, I'll be back with the explanation why the Postgre container is being troublesome this evening. And
Cool,
thank you,
cool.
Mihai.
Thank you, Elif.
Cool.
Yeah, and we can hear you, Mihai. I can hear you anyway, so people can shout on chat if they can hear you. But thanks, Elif. This is great. Live troubleshooting. This is this is great. I'll leave you to it, Mihai. Thanks.
Don't be so quick. Let's see. Please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen as well.
That's exciting. Right before I started this presentation, I decided to do a DNF update on my OS, which killed Zoom again. So this is what happens if I start the Zoom client. We could have traced it online, but thankfully we have a web UI. So let's jump into today's talk. And today's talk is about being lazy. How lazy are we talking about? Well, it's using and writing presentations and documentations as code. I'm going to use today's presentation as an example. Yeah, I've authored it using Markdown, and I'm going to show you how you can build online documentation, an online website, a PDF presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, and a Word document from the same source, and how you can do so using a CI/CD pipeline that you can just check in a bunch of Markdown into GitHub, and then it generates everything. If your boss wants a nice Word document, there it is. It's part of the build. If you need to deliver a nice PDF presentation, it's part of the build. If you want to have a searchable website, it's also part of the build. Sound exciting? I hope so. So let's take a look first at the agenda and introductions. We're going to start with Mkdocs, which is a documentation framework. It's similar to Sphinx, but it does have a couple of interesting features. We're going to take a look at Pandoc. Pandoc is, well, it's a way to transform any kind of document into any kind of document, and we'll deep dive into that a bit as well. We're going to take a look at cookie cutter templates, which are, well, I'm sure most Pythonistas know more about cookie cutter than I do, but it's a way to template and to create a templating system for a repository. So if you're generating documentation, if you want to get started very, very quickly, you can use a cookie cutter template. How we can manage all this with GitHub, how we can set up a CI/CD pipeline, and a couple of tips and tricks for editing Markdown. So without further ado, I'm not going to bore you with the presentation. We're actually going to write all of the documentation that you see here and all of the presentation live together using Markdown. So first thing first, let's jump straight into it and let's take a look at what's on the left and what's on the right of my screen. So on the left side of my screen, what you'll see is a text editor. In fact, you might actually be more familiar if I'm going to use something like Visual Studio Code. So let me just do that. So we don't have any. Do you trust Microsoft? Hell no. But okay. I think Visual Studio Code has also updated. So you're familiar with Visual Studio Code. You're familiar with Markdown. How can we get the items that you see here on the left-hand side of my screen, which are a bunch of Markdown documents with headers? So as you can see, I have a heading 1 and I have a heading 2 into what is on the right, which is a PowerPoint or a PDF presentation. So let's take a look a bit and observe. intro and overview corresponds to intro and overview. Then you have Mkdocs, which corresponds to Mkdocs, Pandoc, which corresponds to Pandoc. So let's take a look at the agenda and introduction section that you see here. As you can see, a heading 1 will actually generate a new section for my PowerPoint presentation. And a heading 2, which you see here as overview, will generate a new PowerPoint slide, or LaTeX, or whatever presentation system I'm using in this case. And a heading 3, which is heading 3 here, will generate a box. Simple. So if I want to create speaker overview, or if I want to create maybe a new section, I can do it like that. But if I want to get a bit fancy and say, here are some frameworks. Let's save, and then let's go back here. Let's run a build. Oops. Let's run a build. And let's see what's going to happen on the right-hand side in my presentation. Here are some frameworks. Not very exciting, but it looks like we can generate documentation using code. Let's take a look at some more advanced use cases. How about generating sections inside my document where I have a 40% and a 60% split? Well, let's go back to our Visual Studio Code here, and let's take a look at the Mkdocs section. And what you see is that I'm able to create columns as well. So in fact, I'm going to make it a 50-50 because we want things to be as equal as possible. And I'm also going to insert a speaker note. And now, once we run another build here, and I actually do have a script to run a build on save, if you want to do that. Those of you who know how to run a build on save can win today's competition. So with the file alteration monitor in Linux to monitor for file changes and run a script. If not, well, I'm not going to do it because I forgot. You can just write a very, very short shell script that every time there's a save, it will automatically generate this document. So as you can see now, I have a 50-50 split. But that's not exciting enough, right? I'm sure all of you write presentations and generate presentations, but here's an exciting use case. How about syntax highlighting? If I want to write some Python code, well, or any code, in fact, can actually be syntax highlighted. How? Well, how would you do it in Markdown? So let's take a look at this example. All you have to do is generate a code block, as you see here, and attach the language that you want to use. And this will automatically give you the right syntax highlighting for your code. Okay, so far so good. We have a very nice presentation. We can generate a presentation as code. But what if we need to generate a PowerPoint? I'm working with folks who don't really like to use code and just want a nice PowerPoint they can use. So let's take a look at the output here. And you'll see I've also generated a PowerPoint document. So let's open this with my presentation software. By the way, if you're using Linux and you're looking for, or any operating system, if you're looking for a kick-ass Word-like or Office-like experience, WPS Office is really good. Not sure if anyone here sees it, but it's almost identical to Microsoft Office. Probably dangerously identical, but more on that topic later. So here's the presentation in PowerPoint format. Again, you can see some things have been translated as well, including your syntax highlighting. Now, obviously, you might want to change your design or template, or I don't know, you have a favorite template, and you can actually change that as part of your build process. So, for example, for Pythonistas, you might want to do a PyLadies presentation, right? You might want to have a PyLadies template. All you have to do is swap the template. In fact, you can have different templates as part of your build and generate 20 different versions of your presentation online. But this is still not enough if you think about it, because most folks don't really like to consume or to generate presentations in the form of PowerPoint. Maybe they want a searchable website. Well, let's take a look at the searchable website. Here is my website. It's actually generated from the same content. How? Well, this is the Mkdocs framework. It's a framework written in Python. used to create a searchable info center where you can drop in Markdown documents, and it will automatically generate the framework that you see here. So let's take a look at a couple of the cool features that you have with this. So first, you also have syntax highlighting, which is a must, right? But you also have something very, very cool. You have the ability to do things like this, right? So you can have these accordions, and you can have a number of structures, which make it really, really easy for you to annotate documentation. In fact, here are some of the interesting features that are supported by this extension using superfences. So you can generate notes, you can generate all sorts of code blocks. You can generate code blocks within code blocks, collapsible blocks, inline and notification boxes. But one of my favorite features is actually the ability to run custom Python code. I hope I have your attention. So let's see where I've placed DevOps Toolbox. I hope I can find it. You know, I can never find my repositories. So here's a repository I've generated for my Ansible code. And this is actually generated using Python. So I have a Python script that goes into all of my Ansible recipes. It extracts the code, and it generates online automated documentation using Mkdocs from it. And it also has a couple of cool features, including diagrams as code. So you probably know that there are a lot of libraries written in Python or in other languages, JavaScript, GraphViz, PlantUML, that you can use to generate diagrams, to generate images. And I'm actually using those here. As you can see, this is actually image generated from code. So if you're trying to develop online documentation that integrates nicely with your documentation, that integrates nicely with your code, this is one of the ideal tools that you can use. So let's take a look at, for example, Ansible roles. As you can see, I have a document control here, which shows the maturity. If I have version 1 in the document, it generates version 1. And then you can have, shell script output. So you can switch between tabs very easily in your documentation. So how do you get started with building something like this? Well, today's presentation is entirely open source and can be found on Mkdocs, PyLadies Dublin documentation as code with Mkdocs and Pandoc. Kind of a mouthful. The idea is that you can clone this repository, and you'll find here a cookie cutter file. And once you run the cookie cutter template, it will generate this version for you. And you have a make file. And if you just type make, it will generate your documentation. So let's take a look. Right. So I've typed make, and you see that I have a number of targets because I've written a make file with self-generating help. So if you type make venv, it will generate a venv virtual environment where it will install Mkdocs. It will install the Mkdocs plugins using pip in a user pip, and then it will run Mkdocs from your venv. So let's type make venv, and after venv, I'm going to type make serve, which is the second target that I want to execute. So that all this builds, you'll see that it's now installing Mkdocs. It's installing the necessary plugins. Obviously, it's installing them from a requirements.txt. As you can see, once it finishes installing Mkdocs, it will serve it locally. I can test my documentation locally. If I like it, I'm going to push it to GitHub using make publish or make whatever I call the target. Deploy, there we go. Deploy project to GitHub pages. Now, you can do this yourself as well with Mkdocs. There's a command here in Mkdocs. You'll see it has new to create a new Mkdocs project, serve to run a local environment, and gh deploy, it will create within your GitHub repository, it will create a gh pages. So if you look at the branches here, you'll see you have a new branch called GitHub pages, and in GitHub pages, it will publish on this link your documentation, which is browsable online. In the meantime, I'm still building the local version, as you can see, and I have a local version running on localhost. The cool thing about having a local version is that I can actually test and run things locally. So if I have my Visual Studio Code here and I want to make a change, so let's go to the introduction page and let's say documentation as code with Python-y stuff. And let's go to my website. Documentation as code with Python-y stuff. So also use the search feature to search for where your documentation has linked. All of these pages can also be outputted as individual PDF documents. You can output the whole thing as a PowerPoint or a PDF document, and so on and so forth. So before I end the presentation and we jump into a couple of questions and answers, let me give you just an overview of how this stuff works behind the scenes. There's a docs folder here. And in this directory, you have a bunch of markdown documents, which are arranged strategically, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, so that when I run a Pandoc star, it will take them in this order. In the metadata, I have my presentation title, subtitle, author, and date, and you can use this cheat code here to get always the latest presentation. So you have the build document. Oh, there we go. There's a typo. And then you can select things like the theme. So you can have this presentation in white or blue or purple or black. It uses LaTeX behind the scenes with Beamer. So you can use any of those Beamer templates. And you can even use your own custom template. If you're generating a PowerPoint, what you'll see here is a template directory. And you can actually have a PowerPoint template. So the reference PowerPoint template is the style that you want to use. So if you want to make a nice screen presentation template for PyLadies, then you can use this as well. Now, same documentation that I'm building from docs also goes into something called Pandoc. Mkdocs. So Mkdocs is a YAML file where I define my site name, URL, description, and author, a couple of things about the repository. So this is just what links it will post in there where you can find the doc, and copyright and theme. So theme will have a custom directory called theme where you can put your extra CSS and style sheets. Again, if you want to make a nice green logo, or if you want to change the logo of your presentation. If I go into theme, let's take a look here. I see basically these are my local customizations. We can make this PyLadies if you want. It's as simple as, and I hope PyLadies Dublin, I hope I'm not going to be accused of copyright infringement here. Copy image address. Come on. Yeah, your logo is very well protected. I can't seem to steal it. This is interesting. Open image in new tab. Copy image address. There we go.
I didn't protect anything. It's whatever's there.
All right. So let's take a look now at the website. Let's build another version of this documentation. And there we go. As you can see on the top left side, we have customized the website. And if you want to customize it further, I'm sure that another thing that you can do here, I'm going to go in the Mkdocs YAML. I'm going to change the theme. So as you can see, I have black and red. So let's go with green and I don't know, green. Maybe it's too much green. But, yeah, it's definitely too much green. I don't know. So black and green is probably what you want. There we go. Black and green. So now the accent color is going to be green. So as you can see, if I select this as an accent, it will go green. Everything that you see here, again, you'll find on this repository, Cube Talks, on GitHub. It's open source. You can take it, you can use it. More information can be found on Mkdocs, Pandoc website, and all the other websites. Opening it up for questions. How do you write your documentation? Do you use things? Do you use Data? Do you use LaTeX? Do you use Markdown? Do you use Jekyll or Hugo? So any questions from the audience or on YouTube there, Vicky?
Okay, I think there is one.
It is one, yeah.
Yeah, from Andrea, is it? That's the one, is it? Where does the accordion feature come from? Is this some kind of theme?
Yes, in fact, if you're that means you're paying attention. So it's part of the materials theme. So it's Squid Funk. Squid Funk Mkdocs material is one of the themes from Mkdocs. And if you can look at, let's see, getting started, and let's see, creating, publishing, setup, reference, admonitions, you'll see that these features, like the notes, come from the themes, and they tell you how to use them. So if you write 3 question marks and note, it will generate an accordion like this, right? It's collapsible. If you write 3 exclamation marks and note, it will make it like this, where it's not collapsible, right? It's always expanded. If you write 3 question marks and a plus and a note, it's like this, but it's collapsed. It's collapsible, but collapsed. Not collapsed, expanded. There we go. And so on and so forth. So you can find all of these examples here, and you can make them. One cool thing, you can make a PyLadies box. So if you want to make a PyLadies box, all you have to do is to have a PyLadies.png file. And then when it will put it, it will make it like this one. So this one is for Pied Piper. Bonus points those that know the Silicon Valley movie. So we can create one like this and say triple exclamation mark, PyLadies, and it will have a PyLadies box with your logo there. Any other questions?
No more so far.
All right. So if anyone's interested in writing cool equations or writing cool documentation, you can tweet at me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I hope I'm on Twitter. Not sure about that. There we go. It's my name. So just tweet at me, and I can answer some questions if you're interested. Cool. So back to Elif. I think she's worked some things out there. Elif.
Thank you, Mihai, for your help. So I know what I did wrong, usually, of course. I think there was a joke, or at least a lesson when I learned in my first few years of being in IT. Well, the issue lies between the keyboard and the chair, so human error, always. What I did poorly, guys, was the following. Let's say the application is now up and running, but I'm gonna tear it down. I'm actually removing the pod. Podman Compose is creating behind the scenes. For that, Podman pod rm PyLadies. Well, I need to force it. Apologies, it's not a nice goodbye. The issue was the fact that the database container was not able to access the data container. As I was showing you in the Docker Compose file, the database container is able to use the current directory data. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Apologies. This is the moment when I realized that. So my screen should be up and running up in just a few seconds. Going back, the database container is able to, yep, done. Not? That is very peculiar. Let me try again.
That's why most folks turn SE Linux off.
Well, I did not. Now log with my screen.
No, just see.
It's very weird.
Again.
Okay, I'm trying once again. Well, then I'm gonna. Oh, it's there. Great. So, third round with charms. Database container is persistently writing data to the local directory data in the current directory. But for a container to be able to actually write data to a local directory, to the local file system, Cell Linux prevents it, unless this container is labeled with the container file T context. Well, Podman and Cell Linux are working together. This is one of the issues I had. So this is the moment this directory has the container file T Cell Linux context. Other than that, the owner inside the database container is the Postgre container. And this directory needs to be owned by the same user. In our case, for example, I have the UID 1000. For example, UID 0 root is mapped to UID 1000. UID 1 is mapped to UID 100,000. So Postgre having inside the container UID 99999, that would be let's say 100,998 UID. So these are the two issues I had. Let's give it a try once again. Podman compose up. Okay, that is great. It actually started. Let's see, we have, well, I would say two, but there will be actually three containers. There is the database container, the web container, and let's see, we are able to access the application. Okay, and I'm running inside the container and everything is up and running. So there were two issues: directory ownership and Cell Linux context. That would be, I wanted to finish this demo with an explanation to the audience. Thank you, Mihai, once again for jumping in and offering your help. And thank you for PyLadies for having us both this evening.
Thank you both so much here. I'm going to just switch to everyone view. I can stop sharing. Yeah, if you can stop sharing your screen, that'd be great. Thank you both for your talks. And yeah, is there any more questions from folks? We have about 2 minutes. We're actually finishing on time, nearly on the dot. But yeah, I would like to say again, thank you to Mihai and Elif for such short notice and jumping on board and giving your talks this evening. Literally, I think last week, big huge thanks to Lay for helping. It's going to find everyone here this evening. Yeah, and also like to thank definitely Lay. Thank you again for this evening, and Michael for helping as well, keeping an eye on things. You had to run up 2 flights of stairs to see what was going on with my audio earlier. So this is pretty cool. So this means that things are done live, which is great. So it's not all pre-recorded and all edited out. So this is all the fun of live, right, everyone? So thank you so much. So yeah, I think I don't think there's any more questions, but just a lot of thank yous for the talks. And
don't say any more questions.
And Terry says massive kudos for both speakers doing live demos tonight. And
extra points for the live demo, Elif.
So yeah, love you pipped ahead. Extra points.
I think it's triple points for Elif if she's using SE Linux. Most people just disable that and don't bother. If you look at the command that Elif had to type to fix this, it's a very simple command. SE manage f context -a minus. It's like this. So yeah.
Well,
Fantastic. That's amazing. This is like debugging while you're actually in the background, just between your talk and coming back. Just yeah, this is like I think a first for PyLadies, and you two are so seamless as well. I didn't actually have to do anything. You just seamlessly hand off to each other, which was also pretty cool. So professional.
well, look at the bright side. As a Pythonistas and as developers, you actually don't need to use SE Linux. It's my job to fix it for you.
So I suppose time we've just hit 7:31, so I will actually again say thank you to everyone here, everyone who's joined us this evening. Special thanks to our speakers, special thanks to everyone like Lay and Michael for helping me, and we'll see you next month in July. So bye everyone.